Hey listeners, welcome to the Natural Birth Talk. Today I am here with Anna Kanoy. She is a teen mom who just birthed her first baby several weeks ago at home. She shares her entire journey through pregnancy and the birth with us, and it is so inspiring, and I really hope it just puts little seeds of motivation in you guys as the listeners. Before I get to the sneak peek though, I want everyone out there to know, no matter how old or how young you are, you can have the birth that you want. You can make your own choices within that birth. And if you need help with education in any way, I have my natural birth education course that is online at your own pace, whether you can afford it or not, whether you know someone who can afford it or not. If you or anyone you know needs it, please reach out to me at contact@thenaturalbirthsite.com. I am happy to help with that. But finally, here is your sneak peek, so stick around.
Just fulfilling that dream of, of God being like, here, you made a mistake, but I'm going to make something beautiful out of it, is just something I could do to help my son know that I love him beyond words. There is no way I would have aborted my son, which the baby daddy wanted me to do. Like, he offered me money. He was like, we can go to Planned Parenthood. And I was like, no, no, no. And so,
I'm so glad I don't use the video for this because I'm making such ugly crying faces right now. Hi, I'm Rachel Manns, owner of the Natural Birth site and this podcast, The Natural Birth Talk. Here, you'll learn all about different natural aspects of birth, pregnancy, and postpartum. Remember, none of this information should take the place of a care provider and is not medical advice. Birth is not a medical emergency. Thanks for listening. Hey everyone, welcome to the Natural Birth Talk. Today I am here with Anna Kanoy, and she is a teen mom who really decided to trust herself and trust her body and have a home birth with her first baby. I think her story is going to be so inspiring, but before we get into that, I want to let her introduce herself.
Hey, I'm Anna Kanoy, and this is my story.
So Anna, you said your son is about 7 weeks old now, right?
Correct. Yes.
And you had a home birth with him.
Yes, I did.
I really, really want to share your home birth story. But before we get into the story itself, can we talk about, what kind of inspired you to have a home birth, or what made you make the choices that you made?
Yeah, of course. So I guess I found out I was pregnant in December of 2021, so last year. And it was a complete shock for all of us because at that point, I was 18 and wasn't expecting to be pregnant at such a young age.
Yeah.
And I had really thought about a home birth because doing research into a hospital birth, I found out that because of COVID, you could only have 1 to 2 people in the room with you. You had to wear a mask. You had to, do all of the COVID precautions and stuff. Mm-hmm. For me, when I get stressed or when I get anxious about something, I really just get super upset with people. And I knew that having a mask would irritate me. Having only 1 to 2 people would irritate me because I knew I wanted my mom, my sister, and a doula with me. And I wouldn't be able to have all of that if I was at a hospital. And so I really just, trusted that God would have a plan for me, a plan that would work for just my family and myself and also for my baby. And it just happened to come across with my midwife named Maggie Petrie. And I met her through a safe home for girls who were pregnant unexpected.
Wow, that's awesome.
And we kind of really clicked, and she was like, if you really think a home birth is something you want to do, I'd be more than happy to be your midwife. And so kind of from that point on, I was like, I really want to do a home birth because I trusted Maggie. I knew that, a home birth would be so much better than a hospital birth for me, just knowing that I wouldn't be induced. I wouldn't have, needles in me. I wouldn't have IVs. I wouldn't have to deal with the checkups every hour or so. And it could just be me and let my body do my own thing. So I really just decided, okay, you know what? If God wants me to have a home birth, he will lay out everything for me. And so I talked to my parents and I was like, hey, I really think a home birth is something I want to do. I just have this, motivation of I really want this. And I think this is what God wants me to do. And at first my parents were like, oh no, that's not going to happen,
Yeah.
because my mom, she wasn't able to have kids. So she's never, had the experience of, a birth, even in a hospital.
Okay.
So background, I am adopted from Guatemala and I have three
Okay.
siblings. So
You
they
said
went,
three older siblings?
yes.
Okay.
So it was very much like all a new thing for my family to walk through me being pregnant. And so she was like, oh, no, you're not going to do that because, there's risk involved. There could be something that could, not go right, And
Yeah.
I was like,
A common misconception.
right.
Unfortunately, people don't realize that home birth midwives still carry all of the emergency equipment.
Right. Yeah. And it was just something that, I was like, I kept telling my mom, I was like, if God wants me to have a home birth, he
Hmm.
will, soften your heart towards a home birth. He will, bring the right people, the right doulas, the right, friends to help me,
Yeah.
get that motivation of, okay, a home birth is what I want. And
Yeah.
so finally, after 2 to 3 months of her kind of processing a home birth and
Mhm.
doing her own research, she found out that a home birth is actually much better than a hospital birth. And the
Mhm.
recovery and even the labor and delivery is so much better, so much more natural,
Mhm.
that the recovery is actually quicker and a lot smoother. And
Yeah.
so finally she was like, okay, you know what? I really believe that you're right. I'm going to trust that, God is going to, protect all of us and protect the baby when he comes. So I got the okay from my parents and we went forward with Maggie.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it was something that I was not expecting her to be like, okay, you know what? You can make the decision because obviously as a teen mom in a Christian home, it's not what they expected me to do is get pregnant at a young age.
Yeah.
And so I thought maybe they would have the more of the say of what I will do because I was, 18, but they really were like, you know what? You are making a big decision of keeping the baby, being mature, going to all your appointments so
Mhm.
you can get the say of what you want as a birth, like a birthing center or a hospital or a home birth.
That's
And
awesome.
so they allowed me to have the home birth. And so I met with Maggie almost every month, and she helps me kind of, this is what you should expect when he comes. This is some exercises you can do. You should really do some research on like breastfeeding and stuff like that. She was just giving me pointers along the way as the time was getting closer. I actually ended up staying at a safe home for girls who were pregnant, and that didn't work out just because of some personal issues.
Okay.
But there were some really great people in that home who helped me, with different exercises. She was a yoga teacher and helps me, hey, this is what you can do to, position your baby in a better way.
That's awesome.
Um, there was also a lactation consultant, and she helped me kind of figure out if I wanted to breastfeed or not. And I definitely wanted to breastfeed
I
because,
love that.
just being adopted and not knowing my biological family, it has been super hard and not
Yeah.
having that connection with my mom. And I really wanted my son to have that connection with me. And so I knew breastfeeding was something I wanted to do because it's so intimate and so close that,
Oh.
we will have that bond that I didn't have as a child. And
Yeah.
so I was
Oh,
like,
you're gonna make me cry.
so 100% I wanted to do it because I knew, I've known people who are like, breastfeeding's hard. Breastfeeding can be very painful. Breastfeeding can last, up to 2 weeks and then you're done. And I kept telling myself, I said, you know what? I want to have a bond that I wasn't able to have with my mom, that I
Yeah.
want my son to have. And so I told myself, I was like, no matter what the pain's going to be like, no matter what, the bumps will be along the way. I want to have this journey with my son and be able to tell him, you know what? Yes, I made a poor decision. Yes, I made a mistake, but the outcome wasn't a mistake. God knew you were going to be in my life at age 18.
Yeah.
And so just fulfilling that dream of, of God being like, here, you made a mistake, but I'm going to make something beautiful out of it is just something I could do to help my son know that I love him beyond words. There is no way I would have aborted my son, which the baby daddy wanted me to do. Like, he offered me
Oh.
money. He was like, we can go to Planned Parenthood. And I was like, no, no, no. And so,
Oh, I'm so glad I don't use the video for this because I'm making such ugly crying faces right
oh,
now. Oh my
so
goodness.
just all these women at this home just helped me realize that, it's okay that we make mistakes, and it's how
Yeah,
we decide to like fix them and how we decide to move on is, just it's something that, most girls will be like, oh, I'm pregnant. Okay, let's get rid of it. They don't realize
right.
the joy that comes once you are forgiven and once God is like, okay, you made a mistake, but I'm going to forgive you. So let's move on. They think
Yeah.
of like, it's just total fear of, oh, I'm going to be a screw up. Oh, people are going to look at me weird. And yeah, I had those feelings of people are going to look at me. People are going to say things. And they did. I was at a private Christian school, and the kids there, not bullied me, but you could tell they were judging me and
Hmm.
they made fun of me. And you know what? I just, I prayed every day and I said, God, just help me to have the strength to move on with this pregnancy, not to fall into the trap of sin and, get rid of him.
Right.
Um, and so,
And it was all worth it. It was worth all the
right.
joy that you
Oh, yeah.
experience now, right?
Yes. So, anyways, so as the time got closer, I started going to Mosaic, which is a
Hmm.
pregnancy center for moms who, need help or don't
Hmm.
have the support that most moms do. And I started taking their classes and just preparing myself for what labor and delivery will be like. And they were super sweet. They just welcomed everyone there. There's people from different stories, different backgrounds that were there. I was the youngest there, so it was very nice knowing that all of these people, even older people that were pregnant, kind of had a similar story as I did,
Yeah.
just being pregnant outside of marriage, but choosing the life and moving on. And so, anyways, I just really embraced those times of just people reaching out and helping me and just encouraging me, hey, you can do this. Labor and delivery is the hardest thing a woman can do, but
Yeah.
it's so rewarding at the end. And I kind of like brushed off, it's like, yeah, I know it's hard, but I'll
Yeah.
be fine. I did not know how hard it was going to be and how painful it was until he started coming. But looking back now, I was just so grateful and so blessed that I knew God was just with me 100% of the way. And there was no day or no time or no moment that He wasn't. And even though I was scared and even though I was terrified that, my family would hate me, that my friends would hate me, my extended
Hmm.
family would hate me. And knowing that now that they embraced my son, like they
Hmm.
just love him, they adore him. I don't know why I was scared. I don't know why I was
Yeah.
terrified. So it was just everything worked out just beautifully. And God is so good. I have no other words than just to say that. Um,
Oh, you should
so,
be a motivational speaker.
oh. But anyways, so he was born August 8th and his due date was actually August 7th. So kind of moving forward onto the labor and delivery.
Well,
I,
first, before we get there, I just really, man, I'm so proud of you. I just got to say it. Like, that's so amazing. Like, I mean, I don't even know. It's like, yeah, that's just amazing. What a hard choice to make, and especially in our culture where, number one, you didn't grow up learning about birth. So you like are 18 years old and you're just suddenly pregnant and you took the time to learn and research, you didn't just let fear take the wheel, but you prayed and you researched and you chose what you really truly believed was best for your body. And even at 18 years old, you were able to make that conscious, mature, educated choice. And I think that is
right.
so amazing just to keep the baby and to make the choices you made, but then to move on and say, actually, I'm going to do a home birth. I'm like really going to shake this up. Right.
Yeah, add a little bit of spice to
Oh,
it.
yeah, but I love it. I'm so proud of you. I really do want to get onto your birth story though, because I know a little bit of it, but I'd love to hear all of it.
So My due date was August 7th, and on August 7th, I started having contractions. And a few weeks before he was due, I started having Braxton Hicks.
Uh-huh.
And since I am a first time mom, I really didn't know, oh, is this real contractions? Are these fake contractions? Like, what am I
Right.
dealing with? So I really stayed home for the last 2.5 weeks because I didn't want to all of a sudden go into labor when I was at Walmart or something.
Yeah.
Um, so I ended up staying home for the last 2 weeks. And on so August 7th, which was a Sunday, I didn't go to church because I just was feeling super tired and just
Uh-huh.
not normal pregnancy symptoms. And I just remember the contractions kind of started, but they were so irregular that I was like, you know what, this is just Braxton Hicks or something,
Yeah.
just some fake contractions. And I decided, you know what, I am done being pregnant. I am not ready to like wait another 2 weeks until the baby, because my midwife Maggie said up until 41 weeks, you're not supposed to induce yourself,
Yeah.
because first time moms always go late. But I
Pretty
was
much.
so I was having really severe back pain. And
Mhm.
for the last month, I would say I was sitting up in a chair sleeping because my back pain was so painful.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
later I found out that he was actually in like a cradle position, almost like, so his elbows were in my spine, which was
Oh,
causing a lot of pain. And when he was born, that's how he was positioned too. So it was very, very painful. And so I actually started to pump for,
okay.
an hour. And I was like, you know what, this is probably not going to work. I'm probably going to go late like everyone else does.
Hmm.
And so I did that around noon. And then about an hour and a half later, I started having contractions. And I knew these were real contractions
Yeah.
because they were super painful. They were a little more consistent than
Hmm.
the earlier ones. And I talked to my mom. I was like, hey, you might want to get ready because I think this is going to be the day he comes.
Hmm.
And so my mom was like going around the house, getting everything ready. And since I was having a home birth, she wanted to get sheets on my bed that we could throw away. She was
Yeah.
getting the living room set up for, like the balls and the different positions I could be in
Hmm.
comfortably. So setting table, like, chairs up and getting the couch cleaned up, whatever. And I just kept having them there about 4 minutes apart.
Hmm.
And so around 8 o'clock, my sister, who knew she was going to be there when the baby was born, we
Yeah.
called her and I was like, hey, you might want to come over. The contractions are definitely getting closer together. She's
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll be right over. So she and her husband actually came over at 8 o'clock, and they were there the entire like labor and delivery. So I think it was about 15 hours before he was here. So they were
Okay.
there for 15 hours. And then my really good friend who has two girls of her own, and she's actually pregnant with her third. And
Okay.
she's helped me through the whole pregnancy journey. She and I met together and we did an online course. And she talked to me about like breastfeeding and stuff. And she loves all pregnancy things. So she came over and she was the contraction timer.
Okay.
So she kind of, because she has two girls, she kind of knows what to expect next.
Hmm.
And so she was really good to have because she was like, okay, you're going to experience a contraction in, 30 seconds. So prepare yourself. And since my mom has never, had contractions or whatever, she was just more there to like, rub my back during contractions or just,
Yeah.
motivate me and being like, hey, you got this, you're going to be okay. And then finally, at, I want to say 12 o'clock at that night, I finally was like, Mom, can we please have the doula come? So my doula started coming and she got there at 12:30ish, and she, took over because she's more trained in that area of
Right.
positioning and stuff. And she did all these different exercises for me. Like she was like, okay, get on the ball and kind of do circles or figure eights, or let's try sideline and
Hmm.
release, or, whatever. And I was having labor back pains. And so when I was having those contractions, I would actually try and run from them.
Yeah.
So my body would like go away from them. And it was really hard because I knew I was like, if I don't stay focused, I'm going to lose it. And
Yeah.
so I told myself, I was like, just breathe, you got this. And so even though my body would move away from it, my mindset was still, okay, you got to focus.
Yes.
And so my mom was like, she was like, when she looked back on it, she was like, I don't know how you did that because I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Yeah.
And
Well, I teach all of my doula clients, and I teach in my online class too, all about how mindset is so
yes,
important. And you've experienced that. It's really, labor is such a mind game. And
yeah,
if you can keep your mind in the right place, that's really, in my opinion, the number one key. Those talking to yourself, being prayerful or spiritual, and
right.
just keeping that mind focused. It's so,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah,
so, so
for
important.
sure. Yeah. And actually my friend Caitlin, who was she's having her third baby. A week before he was due, she did the ice game where you put your
Mhm.
hand in ice and you have to focus, and it's kind of like contractions where you
Yep.
can't get rid of it, but you have to, figure out how you can move on with it still being painful.
Yep.
And I was terrible at the game. I only lasted maybe 2 seconds. And she's like, oh, I'm so worried about you. Like, I don't know how you're going to do this. And
Mhm.
so I had that mindset of, oh, I want to prove to her that I can do this. So
Yeah.
I told myself, like, you know what? Just breathe. You got this. And at the end, when she came back and visited me a couple days after he was born, she's like, I'm so proud of you. Like, I thought you weren't going to be able to do it, but you did it and you surprised me. And just knowing that her not really having much faith in me from
Mhm.
the beginning, it's just something that's like, oh, wow, I actually proved to her and proved to
Yeah.
my family that I did it,
It's a
without.
great it's a great motivator. Like, people should use those naysayers as motivation. Don't let them knock you down. Let them build you up, right?
Yeah, for sure. So, anyways, so my doula came over, started doing positioning, and my midwife Maggie actually was headed to another birth at the
Oh
same
no.
time. And since this was our first pregnancy out of all of us and first home birth, my mom was freaking out and I was a little freaking out. So her assistant, who is also a certified midwife,
Mhm.
she came over to do a checkup on me, and she checked up on how much I was dilated, and I was about a 5'6". And
Okay.
she was like, you know what? I feel like this is just, going to last a few days. So I wouldn't.
Really?
Yeah, and I was kind of surprised because I was like, "Oh no, I definitely know he's coming." Like, just I was like, "I'm not letting this, last 5 to 4, days, whatever." So she was like, "You know what? You can just think about taking a nap, maybe going to bed." She was really telling me, "Oh, this isn't, the real thing. You're gonna be like this
Huh.
for a while." And so she's like, as long as you guys are okay, is it okay if I go back to Maggie, who's at another birth? She really needs help. And me and my mom look at each other and we're like, no, like we're not okay. But my doula was like, you know what? I got this. If things change, I'll text her and I'll let her know. And
Mhm.
so we were finally like, okay, I guess it's okay that you go back.
Yeah.
And so my brother-in-law actually went to go grab the birthing pool because I was
Mhm.
going to do a water birth.
Yeah.
And so he went and grabbed the pool, and they set it up in my bedroom. And I got into the pool, and that really helped with
Good.
just the pain and the contractions. But I guess my doula said that the water can actually slow the contractions down. It can slow it down or like kind of make it, stop. And that's not what I wanted. And I was getting
Yeah.
tired. And so I got out a couple of times, and, things just really, I felt like they weren't moving.
Okay.
And so my midwife decided, you know what, let's have someone come back when the baby's born. The other lady's baby was born. And so I kind of had a mindset of, okay, they're going to be coming back in the morning,
Mhm.
they're going to check up on me. And so again, the contractions were just getting stronger. And
Yeah.
I just remember that I was just getting tired and I really didn't know how much longer I could do. And I kept telling my doula, I was like, how much longer?
I
She
know.
said, I
Oh,
don't know.
I wish we had that answer. I wish
No.
we had a crystal ball and could give you an answer to that
Oh,
every
yeah.
single time.
Yes. And so I kept talking to her. I was like, how much longer? I can't do this. And I was like, how many more pushes? And she would just tell me, she's like, you know what? The more pushes you do, the less amount of pushes you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
She was just trying to encourage me and tell me, you know what? He's going to come when he's ready.
Yeah.
And so that's not what I wanted to hear. So I
Of
would
course.
push even when there was no contractions, which never do that because that wears you out more.
Yeah.
And I was just all over the place. I was in the pool. I was trying the toilet. I was going up and down the stairs. But
It's amazing that you had that option, right? Had you been
yeah,
in a hospital, you would not have had the option to do all of those
yeah,
movements.
yeah. And that's another reason why I wanted a home birth is, you know, being able to do kind of the things I wanted to do at my own time instead of,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you have to be in a bed and you can only do so and so exercises on a bed, which may or may not help.
Right.
But so, anyways, so my midwife texted around 8 o'clock in the morning, was like, hey, the lady's baby was born. We'll be over as soon as we're done cleaning up. And so, you know, there was really no progress. I really wasn't feeling the baby at all. Um, I was really just kind of like, okay, you know what? If I need to go to a hospital now, I'll go to a hospital. But
Really.
my doula was like, you got this, you know, you're so
Mm-hmm.
close. I feel like, you know, he'll be here within the next, you know, 5, 6 hours. And I was like, 5 or 6 hours. I want him now.
Right.
And she's like, you got this. And so finally, an hour after the other baby was born, they came over. So it was around 9:30. And my midwife checked on me. And I was going to say, I was like, you know, I really think it's probably a 7, 8, you know, there's no progress. She checked me and she's like, you're about a 9, 9.5. And I was like, oh, wow. And so that really, you know, urged me and pushed me to be like, okay, he's actually coming. Like he'll be here so soon. And so we got back in the pool and again, my contractions slowed down and really there was no progress when I was in the pool. And I really wanted a water birth, but I knew if I stayed in the pool any longer, I just would wear out and I wouldn't be able to have a home birth.
Okay.
And so my midwife suggested, hey, why don't you try the bed? And she was like, how about we try tug of war? And tug of war is just where you pretty much, you know,
are tugging on a sheet. Yeah. You have one end and the midwife has the other, and it helps you to just give really good pushes.
And so I tried that. And again, I was having back labor pains. And so it was so painful. And I just cried and I cried and I cried.
That's okay.
And I was like, Mom, I can't do this. And my mom actually had to step out because she was like, it just hurt me to see you hurt.
Yeah.
And so I remember just looking at my sister, like tears coming down. I was like, it hurts so bad. It burns. And she's like, I know you got this. And I just was like, I can't do this. And so when the contractions started, when I was tugging the sheet, I would like literally sit up because the back pain was so painful. And I talked to my midwife. I was like, I don't think I can do this. And so she's like, okay, let's try the toilet.
Yeah. So, toilet. Oh man, the toilet is so helpful.
Yes. And I sat on the toilet. First I sat normal, like facing out. And I remember I was like, how many more pushes? And my midwife's hand was under and she's like, oh, I feel the head. I can feel it. It's coming. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this any longer. Yeah. And she was like, just remember, it's like you're pushing out poop. And I was like, it's just poop. And I think I said that so many times to motivate me. It's just poop. Yeah. And my midwife was like, you know what, it's coming. You just have to give a couple more big pushes. But the contractions were just so painful. I was just like, I really can't do this. And so we tried the opposite way, facing the wall. Yeah. And seeing if that would help, you know, having a pillow and just kind of more relaxed position. And it did help, but it was just, I was pushing since, you know, 8 o'clock, like the other morning or the other evening. So like I had been pushing for so long that I was just tired and exhausted. And so finally I was like, let's try the, you know, tug of war again. And so
I
Um,
love that you trusted like you kind of listened to your body and you trusted your instincts. Like you knew the tub wasn't, even though you wanted it, you just
mhm,
knew in your body that it wasn't the right choice for you.
right.
And I
Yeah.
love that you trusted that. And then you knew when to get off the toilet and you trusted that you needed to try something else again.
Yeah.
I love that.
It was just, it really was my body leading me. And I kind of was like, you know what, if this isn't going to work, let's try something else. And so I went back on my bed and we did the tug of war for another 2 or 3 minutes and I just couldn't do it. And finally, my midwife was like, okay, why don't you just push, like, we don't do any exercises? Why don't we just let your body push him out?
Yeah.
So I was literally like frog legged, my back was on my bed and my knees were closer to my head.
Uh-huh.
So I was squatting and I just pushed as hard as I could. And I just remember the ring of fire. And
Yeah.
I'd been told, I was like, it's going to burn for 15 seconds, not that long, but it's going to burn. And I remember that sensation of, oh my goodness, this burns.
Yep.
And it was, because it was me, I was like, oh, this lasted like 2 minutes. I was like, there was no way it lasted 15 seconds.
Yeah.
It lasted forever. And I just remember I was like, oh my goodness, this hurts. And I was screaming, crying, whatever. And my midwife goes, oh, I see the head. And she was like, I see it has hair. And she's like, do you want a mirror? And I was like, yes. And so they grabbed a mirror and they put it down there. And I see this little head full of hair.
Yeah.
And it was like the coolest thing because it gave me more motivation.
Yep.
It gave me more of, okay, let's get this over with. And so I kept pushing and he would slide back in.
Which is normal.
Yeah.
But
No,
a little
now,
discouraging.
right. And so I would have this whole big push. And then when the contraction ended, it would go back in. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is killing me. And so my midwife was like, hey, just keep pushing, it's going to come. And so I just kept pushing and pushing. And finally, the head came out and I see the little eyes. I see his little chubby cheeks. And I just start crying. Like there's no words to describe. I had waited 9 months to meet him. I had gone through so many, just so many trials, with school. I got kicked out of school. I went back to homeschooling. I lost the baby's dad. Like so many, bumps that had happened. And finally seeing his face after 9 months, 40 weeks.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. And knowing that God had made this beautiful baby for me. And it's
amazing.
Yes, there was no words. And so it was funny because when his hair came out, it was curly and he was still in me. And my midwife was like, oh my goodness, he has curly hair. And I was like, oh, curly hair. And she goes, yeah, it's so beautiful. I was like, I don't think so. And my midwife's like, it looks like like the baby's dad's hair. I was like, I hate the baby dad. And they just started laughing. And when I look back, I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. But at that moment, I was not laughing. I was just, I was like, I don't want nothing to do with like the baby's daddy involved, whatever. And so anyways, I had one more big push and his whole body just came out. And they laid him on top of me and he cried right away. He smelled so good that that it just, everything just perfect. And he started crying and I started crying and my mom started crying. Everyone was crying. And then we realized I was bleeding a lot. And I knew I was bleeding and that's normal.
Yeah.
But I just started bleeding so much that they had to put potassium in me. They put 3 other medications. I forgot what they were called, but I was hemorrhaging pretty bad.
Yeah. But they were able to take care of it, right?
And I was a little scared,
of course.
I was also like, you know what? They got this. I'm just going to enjoy my moments with my son.
Home birth midwives are amazing. They can take care of emergencies too.
Yeah. So it was about an hour after they kind of, got the bleeding under control. And I did have a 2nd-degree tear, which,
it's normal for a first-time mom.
Yeah.
Maggie was able to take care of it, right?
Yeah. And it was just, I mean, I would definitely do a home birth again. And
Yeah.
I definitely recommend home births to other moms, first time moms, second time moms. I would definitely recommend it. So,
All right. So and now you just have your little boy and he's 7 weeks old and just
yeah.
fills your heart with joy, right?
Oh, so much.
Yeah. Could you ever imagine that, before you got pregnant, would you ever have imagined that this would be your journey and that it would be so joyful for you?
No. And to be honest, I wouldn't trade it for anything. So,
Yeah. I
yeah.
love it. Oh, I'm so proud of you. I know I've already said that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just love that story. I love that, even though there was an emergency, your midwife took care of it because home birth is safe and they do carry emergency
Right.
medicines. And I love that, I hate that you struggled through the birth, but at the same time, I love that you struggled and then you still powered through with the right mindset and you had your baby and it was totally worth every second of it.
For sure. For sure.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Anna. I really appreciate it. I'm
Thank you.
excited to share it and get this information into some moms' hands, especially teen moms. Hopefully it'll be really inspiring for them. So,
Well, thank you.
all right, listeners, I'll talk to you guys in the next episode. But if you have any questions, you can always use the links below to contact me. Thanks for listening. Hi, Rachel Manns again. If you want to learn more, please subscribe to and rate this podcast and head over to thenaturalbirthsite.com to check out our online natural birth education course, birth story blog, YouTube channel, and more.